Welcome, everybody. Dr. Adam Ingrao here with you today from Michigan Food and Farming Systems Heroes to Hives program. And today I'm going to be giving a video presentation on Farm Bill priorities and advocacy for veterans. This is a talk that we have put together mainly to help veterans become aware of the Farm Bill programs that primarily impact them through training and resources. And so, what I'll be talking through today is some of the priorities that we have laid out for congressional members on where we would like to see funding go in the next farm bill. Now, this is something that you all can participate in as advocates, and we will include in this video links to form letters that you can send to your congressional members to advocate for the programs that we're going to be talking about today. So that'll be at the end of this lecture. But really, if you have any questions related to advocacy about any of the issues that we're talking about today, you can feel free to reach out to me at adam@mifs.org. So let's go ahead and get started today. So what we're going to cover in this presentation is the background on the Farm Bill, what's in the Farm Bill for veterans, where we're currently sitting with the Farm Bill, and what you can do to support Farm Bill programs for veterans. So let's talk about that. So let's start with a little bit of background on the Farm Bill. So the Farm Bill was first passed as part of FDR's New Deal and basically kind of coincided with the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. So agricultural practices that led to overproduction that contributed to the Dust Bowl were one of the first issues that the first Farm Bill laid out to kind of address and really looked to help respond to this disaster by paying farmers to reduce production. Now, this particular program is just an example of what really triggered kind of this Farm Bill, this need for something that really focused on supporting farmers, and we called that the Farm Bill. Now, this also coincided with the Great Depression when the first Farm Bill came out, which was really, this economic crisis that faced farmers wholly through this time. And so funding also in this Farm Bill also helped kind of address some of the limitations of farmers based on the economics of what was happening during the Great Depression. Now, what is the Farm Bill? So the Farm Bill is actually one of the largest comprehensive pieces of legislation that's passed by Congress. Typically, it's passed about every 5 years, and our last Farm Bill was in 2018. So we are currently on extensions that have allowed the 2018 Farm Bill priorities to continue, despite the fact that we are not under a current Farm Bill. Now, the extension that we're currently on expires on September 30th of 2025. So unless Congress puts another extension in place, by not having a Farm Bill in place, we run a risk of losing a lot of really important programs that support American farmers. Now, what does the Farm Bill actually do? Well, it governs pretty much everything related to ag policy, conservation, all the way to nutrition assistance and rural development programs, in addition to things like research and trade. So it really encompasses most of the factors that affect the American agricultural industry. And how much does it cost? Well, the Farm Bill is one of the largest pieces of legislation that passes through Congress. Last Farm Bill in 2018 was about $428 billion for 5 years. Now, what does the Farm Bill actually fund? Well, like I said, the Farm Bill funds a lot of different programs. So things like conservation. Many of you who are familiar with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, their EQIP program, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, that is part of the conservation initiatives that are in the Farm Bill. Things like Conservation Stewardship Program are also in there. So a lot of the programs that USDA offers to farmers to help them implement things like habitat or things like that are part of the Farm Bill. The other piece of that would also be credit and crop insurance. So the whole farm revenue program, production program that's part of what USDA offers is part of that. Microloans that USDA offers would also be part of that. Research, when you think about research, a lot of research it relates to farming in general is funded through the Farm Bill. And a great example is the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program, the SARE program, which is a nationwide program that has many different grant opportunities within their portfolio that are all funded through the Farm Bill. In addition, local food systems also benefit from the Farm Bill. So programs like the Value Added Producer Grant, which many veterans have applied for and received, that allows them to actually implement, new strategies to develop new products on their farms to make them more economically viable. So a lot of really important stuff comes out of the Farm Bill. When you look at the breakdown of spending when it comes to the Farm Bill, the vast majority of spending, 75 plus percent of the Farm Bill goes to Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the SNAP program. The other programs that you see here that we'll be focusing on today make up the other about 25% of the Farm Bill program. So, what's in the Farm Bill for veterans? Why should you, as a veteran or a military family member or a supporter of veterans becoming the next generation of American farmers, why should you be interested in the Farm Bill? Well, so let's talk a little bit about what the Farm Bill has in it for veterans. So we'll start with the 2014 Farm Bill. The 2014 Farm Bill had a real shift when it came to the ability for veterans to be targeted with mechanism to support them to be the next generation of American farmers. Think about what was going on in 2014. We had a lot of men and women that were coming back from Afghanistan, from Iraq, who were looking for their next opportunity as they were transitioning out of the military. And so one of the things that happened during the 2014 Farm Bill is veterans were actually added to the beginning farmer category of the USDA. So USDA has a beginning farmer category that says that if you have been farming for less than 10 years, there are certain pots of money, certain interest rates, certain attractive features of USDA programs that you're eligible for that other farmers who have more than 10 years of experience are not eligible for. And so allowing veterans to be engaged in these beginning farmer programs despite how long they've been farming. A lot of farmers come from a lot of veterans come from rural America and may have had experience farming previously, either owning an enterprise or working for an enterprise. This allowed those veterans, even if they had more than 10 years of experience working on farms, to still access these really attractive programs for beginning farmers. Veterans also were given this veterans preference that was put in place alongside historically underserved farmers. So USDA has a definition of historically underserved farmers, communities who have historically not been served well by USDA, and veterans were put in there. And basically what that means is when veterans apply for certain programs within USDA's offerings of programs, like NRCS programs, like the EQIP program, veterans applications, these are competitive programs, veterans applications, if you put an application in for, say, an EQIP program as a veteran, your ranking as far as your application was increased. So say you were, most people who apply for the program have to apply for multiple years before they get access to the program. Veterans oftentimes would get access to a lot of these EQIP programs the very first year they applied because their application was given veterans preference, which basically increased the ranking of those competitive applications. In addition, we also saw set-asides put in place in the 2014 Farm Bill for grant programs specifically targeting the support of farmer veterans. So individuals, military personnel, they need to be trained a lot of times in agriculture. Not everybody that's in the military that wants to farm came from a farming background. And so many programs, grant programs, like the Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program and the 2501 program, actually had budget set-asides put in place as part of those programs. So for example, with Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program, which is largely is the main program that USDA offers that supports training programs like Heroes to Hives to train veterans to be the next generation of beekeeper or farmer. A lot of those programs are very competitive. BFRDP, for example, had 5% of its 20-ish million dollar budget that was set aside specifically for programs that supported veterans. Now, that had a huge impact on our community. Previous to 2014, there were not a lot of farmer veteran training programs, so programs that focused on training veterans to be the next generation of farmers. This is an unpublished study at this point. It's been accepted for publication in the Journal of Extension, but has not been published yet. This is one of my own publications. And this was an analysis that me and some colleagues did on the Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program, the program I just spoke about. And what you can see here is the inception of the program was in 2009. And what you see in the dark bars compared to the light bars, the dark bars are funding dollars that went to programs that were not targeting veterans. And so the vast majority of funding, 2009, 2010, and 2011, the vast majority of funding that was being allocated for the Beginning Farmer program were going to programs not focused on veterans. Once 2014 hit and we saw the new Farm Bill come out with these new set-asides that were put in place for programs specifically targeting veterans, you see this tremendous shift with those light bars. Those are funding dollars awarded to veteran-focused programs. The vast majority, we saw this huge shift in funding dollars going to programs that were trying to generally teach veterans to be the next generation of farmer. That was a huge benefit to us in the veteran community. We saw this amazing shift, and all sorts of programs started popping up, Heroes to Hives included. We started in 2014 with our first program starting in 2015, and we were one of those individual programs that were benefiting from programs like the BFRDP program and allowing us to use federal grant dollars to basically offer free training to thousands of students a year in beekeeping. And so this is an imperative program. Many of our partners also use this program to put on-ground programming in place. So like if you're one of our veterans who works with the University of Missouri, a lot of the program that you have been privy to and have the ability to take part in has been funded by the Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program. So this is a very important program to make sure that training still happens for farmer veterans, and allows them to be competitive in this space of being the next generation of American farmer. Now, in 2018, things really shifted in the 2018 Farm Bill. In the 2018 Farm Bill, we had sunset clauses that were added to veteran preference for eligibility for some USDA programs. So the beginning farmer category. So we were added to the beginning farmer category in 2014 with no restrictions. You could be, you could have been a veteran, 20 years out of the military and still access these beginning farmer programs. In 2018, they put sunset clauses in place. So now in the 2018 Farm Bill, and this is current, so whatever if you're a farmer now, this is what it's affecting you right now. Right now, you are only considered a veteran by USDA for 10 years after your discharge date for NRCS programs, so Natural Resources Conservation Service programs like the EQIP program. You are only eligible for that as a veteran, so to get veterans preference, for 10 years after your discharge date. For risk management agency programs, you're only allowed 5 years after your discharge date to be considered a veteran and get those preferential points towards your applications for competitive programs. Now, what that is, that's a sunset clause. Essentially, I don't know about you, but when I got out of the military, the first thing I wasn't thinking about was going and starting a farm. A lot of us are just trying to figure out how to deal with disabilities when we get out of the military and trying to revamp our lives as civilians. And so not giving veterans the benefit to actually determine when they want to be participating in these programs, that just doesn't seem fair. Essentially, right now, when you get that DD 214, the clock starts. And essentially, if you decide you want to be a farmer, 10 years after you got out of the military, you are not going to get the preference that I believe you deserve as American heroes to these programs that are put in place to support us. So this is a really big change in the 2018 Farm Bill, and one of the biggest issues that we see, and one of the main legislative priorities that we are laying out for veterans to contact their congressional members, is to get rid of these sunset clauses. You are a veteran that served your nation with honor, and you deserve to have access to these preferred programs to make sure that you are competitive in the marketplace and are given the best educational opportunities possible to support you in this next journey, this next mission. So where do we sit with the current Farm Bill? Well, the extension for the current Farm Bill expires on September 30th. And right now, we are still in the very first stages of the Farm Bill. There has been so much going on in Washington, D.C., and for several years that senators and congressional members, House members have not been able to actually get a draft of this even put together at this point. So one of the major sticking points of all of this is SNAP, and that is still being debated. A lot of veterans are using SNAP benefits, so it is important to the veteran community, but we're talking specifically about farming policies that are mainly looking at training veterans to be the next generation of farmers. So the priorities that we are going to lay out for you today are not related to SNAP. That's a separate debate altogether. But what I will say is that what we are seeing right now in Congress is very slow movement on a very important piece of legislation. And we need to get this final passage soon. More delay is only going to cause more stress on our industry and more stress on our farmers. So who writes the Farm Bill? Well, the two committees that are responsible for the Farm Bill are the Senate Ag Committee and the House Ag Committee. So the Senate Ag Committee, the chairman is John Boozman, who is from Arkansas, and you can see the rest of the Republican majority is listed here. These are all senators who are responsible for drafting the Farm Bill and getting it to the floor. And right now, these individuals have not drafted this bill and have not done what they are responsible for doing, which is getting this legislation to the House and Senate floor and getting this passed into the president's desk. So these are the individuals you should be targeting with letters, phone calls, to get them to get their act together and get this farm bill passed so that we can finally start moving on with a new farm bill and a new understanding of where funding priorities are going to be so that organizations that are supporting veterans like Heroes to Hives can start planning on how we are going to strategize and implement these new policies that are being put in place by lawmakers. On the minority side here, we have the Democrats. So Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota is the ranking member on the Democrat side, and these are your senators that you should be contacting to basically, again, promote the good programs that support veterans and allowing them to be the next generation of American farmer. When it comes to the House Ag Committee, this is a much larger committee, so I don't have all these folks listed here, but I am going to give you a graphic here in just a moment so that you can find who your congressional members are that you should be contacting about this. But the House Ag Committee, chairman is G.T. Thompson from Pennsylvania, and again, on the Republican side, you have a bunch more representatives on here, 28 in total, that are part of the House Ag Committee. On the minority side, the Democrats, Angie Craig from Minnesota is the ranking member, and you have 24 members of the Democrats that are on the House Ag Committee as well. Now, who is your congressional member and how can you find information about congressional members? If you scan this QR code or you go to this link down below, it will direct you to the directory for your congressional members. And so you can look up congressional members and their information, contact information for their offices through this link and this QR code. So what can you do to support Farm Bill programs for veterans? Well, the big thing is contact your lawmakers. Advocacy starts with you. Lawmakers respond to constituents. And when you're thinking about, does my voice actually matter? It absolutely does. These congressional members will listen to their constituents, especially when they come out in droves. And Heroes to Hives has almost 20,000 students, both alumni and current students, that have accessed our program. And we are looking to you in particular, I'm pointing to you, to make this happen. We need you to call. We need you to email. We need you to contact them and say, hey, I want to schedule a meeting with you. You need to engage with these individuals to make it known that we need to prioritize veterans in the next Farm Bill. And we need to make sure that we are continuing to support veterans as they transition from the military to have access to great careers in the agricultural field. So whether that's engaging with another advocacy group, maybe working with us at Michigan Food and Farming Systems, that's something that can be done. Now, a lot of times when you engage with these advocacy groups, and I've been part of many of these in the past, there are sometimes fly-ins to Washington, D.C., where you'll have the opportunity to actually speak face-to-face in DC with congressional members and their staffers about the priorities that you want to see happen in legislation. Now, this advocacy, when you do this type of advocacy, you really need to have a list of priorities. So something that is really important to you. So legislation that you support, policies that are impacting you directly. Maybe you're having issues with certain agencies. Maybe USDA is not fulfilling their commitment to doing something that you have expected as a veteran. Maybe there's emerging issues in your community that lawmakers haven't even known about. So maybe it's labor issues in agriculture or something like that you know something about. So these are the things that you need to be thinking about when you are going and talking to these lawmakers. Now, what I'm going to lay out here in the last few slides are our priorities for the next Farm Bill. And so I'm just going to lay these out for you, and you can use these priorities to talk to your lawmakers. Now, at the end of this section, I will also give you a QR code and link to a draft letter that you can download that we've put together that outlines all of these priorities, and you can basically fill in your information and send that over to your congressional member. So keep an eye out for that here at the end. So the priorities for the Farm Bill that we are supporting: removal of the sunset clauses for veterans accessing USDA and NRCS, so Natural Resources Conservation Service, and Risk Management Agency programs. So that was the clause that we said was added in the 2018 Farm Bill, the sunset clauses that were 10 years from the date of discharge or 5 years from the date of discharge, that you are no longer given that veteran preferential treatment or access to beginning farmer programs that are specific to beginning farmers. So we're asking for the removal of that. You are a veteran. You served your country honorably. You should be considered a veteran and have access to these preferences through USDA because of your national service. So we're asking for those sunset clauses to be removed. The other one that we're advocating for is the preservation and expansion of the Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program. This is one of the most important grant programs that organizations like Heroes to Hives, that serve thousands of veterans a year and training them to be the next generation of farmer. This is one of the main programs that we use. And this, just to be real honest, these are the types of programs that keep programs like Heroes to Hives free for veterans and their families. Most of the time when you do these kind of advanced courses that are really in depth, there's usually a tuition fee. For 10 years, we have provided over $1 million worth of free education to veterans through programs like BFRDP. So this is a really important program. And we want to make sure that it not only stays in the Farm Bill, but it's expanded. And this is, when we're talking about this, we're only talking $24 million out of almost a $500 million budget. So very small investment for training our beginning farmers to be successful. And so we're asking for that. The next one that we're talking about, and the priority that we would like to see, is expansion of the Section 2501 program. This is a specific program that is for veterans and historically underserved audiences working in agriculture. Those two audiences are what we would consider kind of underserved communities, meaning communities that are not normally accessing a lot of USDA programs or being met with a lot of USDA programs. What this really supports is equitable access to USDA programs. So this offers a lot of technical services. So technical services, basically like with Heroes to Hives, one of the services that we have offered our students for a decade is technical services. So things like, I need to get access to a USDA program and I'm having trouble with that. Here in Michigan, I'll walk you into a USDA program office and advocate for you. That technical assistance is part of what we use as part of 2501 funding, is to support veterans as they're getting access to USDA programs. The guides that we make as part of Heroes to Hives, things like accessing USDA program guides, the SARE guide that we have for Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education programs, those are things that 2501 supports. So these are really important another really important program to help you make sure that you are getting access to the benefits of USDA that you deserve as an American hero. So that is another program that we are advocating for. The next one we're advocating for, and you've heard me mention it a couple times now, is the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program. This is a grant program that provides one of the very few USDA grants available to farmers to apply for. So you as a farmer can actually apply to their Farmer Rancher program to get a USDA grant to support some sort of research or education project or something like that that you want to do on your farm. They also offer a youth educator grant. They offer grants for researchers, and they offer grants for educators. Now, this is an important program for us because this is the program that we have used to train VA clinical staff on therapeutic beekeeping practices that we co-developed with the VA. This funding has allowed us to basically train clinicians to set up all sorts of beekeeping programs around the United States at VA hospitals and VA clinics. So this is a really important program. If you want to be able to access things like beekeeping as a therapeutic practice through the VA, this is the program that has directly supported that advancement in VA clinical offerings. And both offerings that we offer in Heroes to Hives, if you're part of the course now, our Be Calm, Be Well program, this is the program that funded the development of that. So another very important program to farmer veterans. The other thing that we're advocating for that I haven't talked about yet is the expansion of the National Agribility Program. We have had hundreds of Heroes to Hive students that have used Agribility, myself included, to support their disabilities on farm. So Agribility provides assistance to disabled farmers. You, as a service-connected disabled veteran, as an Army veteran myself, I'm all banged up. You probably are all banged up too. A lot of times when we get into agriculture, we realize that those disabilities are actually hindering our ability to do what we want on the farm. And AgriBility is there to support you in this. They offer assistive technology recommendations. They offer education on how to basically work as a farmer with disabilities. And I'll be point blank honest, I would not be farming still if it were not for the technical assistance, the assistive technology, and the farm assessments and education that AgriBility has offered me over the years. And in fact, right now I'm going through a new AgriBility process to get accessible equipment for my maple syrup operation because of disabilities that I have. This is a really important program for all of us as veterans. Now, this is not in every state in the United States. It's in, I believe, about half of the states in the U.S., but a really important program that we want to see continue to support our farmers with disabilities, which in large are those of us that are veterans. I mean, most of you, at least that take the Heroes to Hives course, we know 60% of our students have a service-connected disability. So most of you that have accessed our program could benefit from from AgriBility. And you will also note AgriBility has also contributed to the Heroes to Hives course. If you've taken our course, there are several sections or several offerings as far as lectures and instructional videos specific to AgriBility and accessible beekeeping. So really important for that component. The last thing that I'm going to mention here is something that is not part of the Farm Bill currently, but we are advocating for the inclusion in the Farm Bill. That is the Enhancing Agricultural Opportunities for Military Veterans program, known as the AgVets program. This is the only grant program that USDA has offered that actually is specific funding just for training veterans to be farmers. The Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program is a large program, about $24 million that go into that program, but it is very competitive and any organization that's working with beginning farmers can apply for it. This particular program, only nonprofit organizations like Heroes to Hives that are training veterans to be farmers, those are the only programs and only organizations that can apply for this grant. It's the only program of its kind. Heroes to Hives has been a recipient of this. Many of our partners have been recipients of this grant to continue to offer you free training in these agricultural endeavors. This is a really important program, and we really want to see this included in the Farm Bill. It has not been included historically in the Farm Bill. It's been included as part of appropriations packages. We want to see this moved into the Farm Bill for permanent funding. And currently, this grant program is not being refunded, meaning it's not actually we're not going to see a request for proposals for this particular grant program in 2025. We know that now for certain. And so this program is at risk of being removed and canceled completely from the USDA portfolio of grants, which would be a devastating blow to the community of farmer veterans that are looking to continue to serve their nation by supporting our food security. This is an imperative program that we need to see continue, and so I hope that you advocate for this program heavily when you are talking to lawmakers and advocating for legislative priorities for the next Farm Bill. This is really important if you want to stay connected and get updates and calls and information about things that are happening with the Farm Bill. Feel free to scan this QR code or go to this link and you can sign up for our updates. Hagen Kapnerhurst is our legislative person here at Michigan Food and Farming Systems, and she sends out these updates as we get updates from Washington, D.C. about what's going on the Farm Bill. So if you want to stay in touch with what's going on with the Farm Bill, feel free to fill out that short form and we'll be in touch with you. If you would like to send a letter to your congressional member specifically for the things that we've outlined today, and you can take this letter and change it any way you want. It's just a starting point, or you can just copy it verbatim and just send it on. But we want to get this to your lawmaker. We want to get this to all of those congressional members that sit on the House and Senate Ag Committee. We need to rattle cages to get these priorities in place for this next Farm Bill. Things are happening at a very irregular pace in Washington, D.C. right now, so we don't know exactly where we're going to stand with a lot of these issues in the Farm Bill, but your voices matter, and making your voice heard and advocating for the priorities that we have laid out today will only benefit all of us as farmer veterans and continue to allow programs like Heroes to Hives to continue offering free training to veterans and their families for free, for nothing. Otherwise, if these types of programs go away, organizations like ours will be forced to make some really tough decisions when it comes to how we fund our programs and how we actually offer our programs. A tuition-based program is not something that we want to offer as Heroes to Hives. You all have paid your dues. The least we can do is provide you with free education around beekeeping, but the way that we do that is through federal grant funds. And so make sure that if you are interested in seeing programs like ours continue, that you advocate for the legislative priorities that we have laid out here today. If you would like to talk more about this, you can feel free to reach out to me. I will also offer technical assistance when it comes to advocacy. So if you're uncomfortable talking to lawmakers and you feel a little nervous about it, we can kind of talk through those things as well through technical assistance. So feel free to reach out to me for that. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this today. This is imperative. The programs that you enjoy as a farmer veteran, the programs that you have been using, that have been training you to learn all of these new ag techniques and ag industries and all of those things are at risk. They're at very real risk. You need to take these things seriously, and only us, as the citizens of this nation, can make a difference by advocating for these types of programs with our lawmakers. And that's how we make a real difference in things like this. So I hope you take this opportunity to advocate for these priorities. And like I said, if you need any additional support, feel free to reach out. Thanks for joining us today.